I love to pop herbs.
Though your background is well known to some, Desiree, would you please describe your journey in becoming the voice of Utah's Patient Coalition?
Um, yeah, I started, I want to say, getting involved in cannabis, I want to say in 2016. I was at the Capitol working on some other smaller issues that I was kind of involved in. Well, they aren't smaller issues, big issues, but a smaller part for sure, in parental defense and a couple of things like that. And I saw the people on the Hill and saw that they were working on legalizing medical cannabis. And I went up to Senator Mattson when I was at another meeting. I saw him and I was like, hey, good luck with that. You know, my son could use it as well. And I kind of just went on my way thinking that it would be passed that year, no problem. But that's not at all what happened. I think there was a lot of us. Senator Mattson, he was running the first bill here in Utah. And he was all for it. He was a patient himself. And I felt like it was not going to be that hard of a sell. I thought that enough people knew that, other states had done it with medical cannabis hasn't posed a lot of problems in medical states. So I thought that it would just not be an issue. I kind of walked away and thought that would be, high five, good luck, and I would be done. And that's not what happened. Even that year, just on my downtime, I started working on things, just independently or helping people get into meetings with Republicans because I, at the time, and I guess still am a Republican. So, and then I was even the secretary of the Republican Party here in Cache Valley. So I could get in Republican doors and get Republican audiences. And so I used that, to navigate some of this for Utah Medical Cannabis. And then, I worked at another, patient advocacy group off and on, and helping UPC. So I worked with another patient advocacy group. And then in the process of that, when we finally were told, I believe in 2017, that we were not going to be heard at the Capitol anymore, that they didn't want us, they weren't even going to hear any cannabis law, any bills that numbered to even try to pass. So we at that time decided that we needed to pass a ballot initiative, which we had been kind of toying with the idea, kind of using it to have some teeth around the fact that they wouldn't listen to us. Because in 2016, if you would try to talk to a representative about medical cannabis, there was very little chance that they were even going to look at you when you asked to try to talk to them. They would walk away. They would walk through doors. There was zero. We had, I hate to say zero, but we had very few, maybe a handful of allies that were even willing to listen to us. That's why when we passed the Senate, it was a huge win. Just a win that we realized then what mountain we were trying to climb, and passing the Senate, knowing that we most likely would not pass the House.
At that time, how many strong were you, Desiree?
Well, we've always been Utah strong, right? Like, it's this battle was won because patients and caregivers. And so we had a lot of support, but you can have all the support you want on a local level, but if you don't have any support in the legislature, you don't get anything passed. And that's where we were lacking. We've never lacked on public support. We've always been, even our first polls were in the 60s. So that was never an issue. And then I went on to, help. We at that point kind of created UPC. That's when DJ Shands actually just kind of quit his job and said, "This is ridiculous. I'll take it on," and he did. And we were very underfunded, and he still did it. I mean, it was funny because it was catch-22. It wasn't a recreational bill, and so we weren't getting dollars from like the recreational industry at all. And then it was Utah wouldn't fund it because they felt like it was too recreational. So we were falling in this kind of dead zone where some people felt we were too recreational, so they wouldn't fund us. Other people felt like we were not recreational because we weren't, and so they wouldn't fund us. And money was hard to come by, even by people who had promised it. So DJ was a champion to just kind of step up and created Utah Patients Coalition, and he and Alex passed the ballot initiative. And against all odds, right when we started, we were in the 70s, 60s, 70s in the polls. And when we passed, right before the compromise, we were down to 46, 48. So, I mean, that's what bad media will do, right? Convincing patients and voters that you are passing a recreational bill. So anyway, at that point, then DJ passed the ballot initiative, and then when he passed that, then Utah Patients Coalition was given to me as DJ went on to. He made almost no money during that time, so he needed to get a job and go take care of his family. So
sure. Well, your incentive, I mean, what was the fuel for your fire was your adopted son, Esteban?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
And once the Proposition 2 had finally passed, or if I may back up, what was the turning point? How would you describe that?
Turning point for him?
Well, the turning point for the passage of Proposition 2.
Well...
Or wasn't there one single moment when you realized that, okay, you were in the home stretch, it was going to pass, and the possibilities were endless?
No, I still don't know that I feel that way. I know that it passed. We passed something. We have ink on paper. I can't, but it was so funny because it passed, and it passed under the compromise, so that was hard in itself, because the day that it passed, we knew we had the compromise was coming, and we knew as soon as the compromise passed, we had two big items, which was the central fill pharmacy and blister packs that we had to get rid of, because those weren't even going to be, that wasn't going to make the plan viable. It wasn't going to work for patients. So it was funny, it passed, and we all kind of looked at each other and we said, we feel exactly the same. We feel like we still have this huge fight. And I still feel that every day. So easy for me to caught up in what still needs to be done. I see a lot of the problems with Utah Cannabis Plan are kind of dumped at my door, and not only do we have to fix them, we have to try to figure out how and if they can be fixed. So there's not been a big turning point. I'm not trying to sound negative. We have a really good Utah Medical Cannabis Plan. Patients are getting access. There's a lot of pain that's been alleviated because of it, and a lot of hope given. We're not there yet.
Sure. So what medications are most effective for your son Esteban? And may I ask where you source them?
Yeah. So we still use the black market. It's technically not illegal until 2021. And we make butter or oil, and we just put it in his G-tube. And that seems to work the best for him. And so we haven't changed. I would love it if eventually he could do an inhalant to alleviate pain quicker. One cool thing about him is when we started using cannabis, he was needing to use it almost every single day. And now he uses it just PRN. So definitely not every day. And if we're going for a big car ride or something like that, I know I can give him some. It's amazing to have something that we're getting in the car, and I know just even we had a funeral in Idaho this last couple weeks ago, and just driving there, had it been pre-medical cannabis, we couldn't have taken him, and my husband would have ended up staying home with him and missed all of it just because he would have been in so much pain. So having that as an option, even though he's not using it every day or relying on it every day anymore, is amazing.
All right. So how has that rippled through your family positively? I mean, I know it was an extraordinarily disappointing passage of Prop 2, it turns out. And yet with the available remedies that you currently utilize, I mean, how has that, I mean, has there been any relief in your family? Any upward mobility, any increase in positivity as yet?
Yeah, I mean, for mine, and I hope, thousands of others, the opportunity, like I said, to get in the car and go somewhere. I mean, for the first time after Prop 2 passed, and then the compromise, that Christmas, we went and saw Christmas lights. And we hadn't done that in years because we couldn't load him up in the car. And,
Right.
so I have other little kids, and we hadn't just drove around to see Christmas lights. Just knowing, and one thing that's similar with my son is with other patients is other pain meds don't work. So we didn't have another pain med. No matter what pain he was in, the most we could offer was ibuprofen. And if it got really bad, we would give him NyQuil, so he would just fall asleep and hopefully sleep through the bulk of the pain.
Sure.
And that would work, but not for very long. I mean, we're talking maybe an hour. And so we really had nothing in our toolbox before cannabis. And even though we had tried every, nerve blocker, everything, they didn't work. So we have something now. I've noticed a huge decrease in seizures, even though seizures weren't our number one priority. And that's one thing that I think patients need to be more open and talking about is, they may get cannabis for pain, but then it's also positively affecting their sleep patterns. And those are things that we need to all be openly talking about. So when I stand before the legislator, I can say it's working for pain and sleep. Right now we have a big idea that it helps for pain. We also need to be talking about those secondary conditions. So that's a little bit of a sidebar, but and a lot of the conditions that they could prescribe for, or some of the other pharmacies could prescribe for, are not on the conditions list. So we still have a large amount of people that are falling outside of that conditions list. And 9 times out of 10, we can say, okay, but do you have pain? And everybody has pain, right? And so do you have pain? And so many of the, 50 and older crowd say, yeah, I had knee surgery and it hurts every day. And so we can go and get them easily a card for pain, but maybe they were using it because they have, they have insomnia or something. And so, or they have anxiety disorder. Well, anxiety is not on the conditions list, and that's going to be a very large fight of mine. Bipolar, anxiety, they don't seem to want to allow those because they worry about contraindications with mental health.
Sure.
And there seems to be some studies that support that, some don't. So I really, we need more data on the other things that people are using it for, to prove that, hey, look, I'm using it for pain. I also have anxiety or depression, and I'm not being negatively affected.
So you're very excited about the NIH grant that University of Utah has received to look at cannabinoids, I would think. Yeah,
no, I mean, I think the more we understand, the better. I worry on both ends. I'm excited that they're doing research. I hope that it plays well in our favor. And, we'll see.
All of this amazing stuff that we're just beginning to pull back the onion on. I feel very positive about this scientific exploration. How about you?
I really do. I've talked to a lot of scientists, doctors, and one of the only concerns that I have is they all seem to want to process it, and they want to separate it, and they want to separate it to understand it, and if that works in our favor and we're able to dose easier, then great. I just know there's a large population of patients that the whole plant is what works for them. And I'm not against science. I'm 100% for it. I think we need to. What I don't want to happen is, well, we're, doing the ebbing and flowing of understanding cannabis. I don't want them to be changing and not allowing the patients that something's working for them. I don't want anything taken away from a patient that's working while we learn more about the plant. If in 20 years we realize that we can separate these cannabinoids and use them more targeted, and it works and it's efficient, then absolutely, I think it's great. I want to make sure that we're studying, the why it's working for some patients as a whole plant as well. It's hard to find a scientist that will ever agree with smoking, and I know some patients claim that the inhalation route is just better for them. So I want to make sure that we protect them in the process.
Right. Yeah, that was an interesting point that was brought up by Olivia Kuhlander. She had mentioned that smoking only allows you access to 20% of its available biomass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for some patients, even if they're getting 20%, if they have a stomach issue or a liver issue, it's not being processed the other way. That's their only shot. It was interesting talking to Dr. Mark Babbitts. I've actually been able to talk to him throughout pretty much the whole process. I feel like, when I first talked to him, he wasn't excited about medical cannabis kind of being dropped on the Department of Health's door, so to speak. He didn't, I think, if I remember right, he told me in the beginning he didn't vote for Prop 2. They were not excited, but they were willing to learn. And they were like, this is ours, let's learn. Always so patient and kind with us. And it's been fun to watch their eyes get opened at the Department of Health. And there was a conversation, I had with Dr. Babbitts where he said, I'm a doctor. I graduated, I have I think he has his MD, and he's like, and his MDA, and he's like, how did nobody ever teach me about the cannabinoid system? He's like, how did I not know? So he, in the beginning he was kind of like, what is this? Why is this working? And then he's like, there's a whole system that your body uses to make this effective for your body. And he's ever since then, he's really dived in and learned a lot, and he's been a great ally at the Department of Health.
That's great to hear. So let's shift gears, shall we? Many people would like to know what your daily routine is as the executive director of the Utah Patient Coalition.
Oh, I don't know if you want to know that.
Actually, we do. Come on, Desiree. Tell us the deep down. What happens? Is your day a mess? Are you super busy?
Yeah. So my day is crazy because a lot of it relies on phone calls, waiting to hear back from patients, or like I even had to postpone you guys today because waiting to hear back from a police sergeant that I needed to hear back from. I feel like I'm still in the position where I'm putting out a lot of fires and trying to understand the problems well, and not just understand the problems, but trying to help the patients that have caught themselves in a situation, finding a doctor for this, for certain conditions, making sure that we have enough doctors, making sure that if patients get charged with something, that we can get them a good lawyer, or we can help them. A lot of times I'm able to help them give all of the information to a prosecutor or their defense attorney and get them off without having to pay anything. That's that's a goal. But also trying to figure out how to get up that chain of command to stop these from happening. That's been a lot of this week. Also, trying to organize doctors, and so they have the right information, trying to organize patients. I find no matter how much I think patients know, I'm still shocked that the education isn't getting out there. And I constantly feel like I need to be doing more to educate patients to stay legal. One thing that happens so often is a patient has the card, they're a legal patient, and then they have this bag or a jar of cannabis, and they're going out of their house and they don't want to carry the jar. And so they put it in something smaller so they can just take a daily amount with them, which you would do with any medication. That makes total sense. And they get stopped. They get questioned. They think I'm a medical cannabis patient. And, you know, so the cop asks if there's any marijuana in the car. They say yes. And next thing they know, they're being charged. And because it didn't, the plant material didn't stay in the original packaging, they're charged with possession and paraphernalia. So, and that happens every day. So my day is,
Every day, did you say?
It's weekly.
Okay.
That we find someone, and the problem is I can only do so much to help, or we can only do so much to help. If they break too many laws, there's not anything we can do. If they've broken one or two and they're mistakes that, you know. So anyway, just and then working with, I'm in constant discussions with, the DOH, the senators, and we're trying to decide what they want to change for next year, making sure the industry has a voice at, with the legislators, making sure patients and doctors do. I kind of lobby for them in a way, to make sure that we get what every party needs to make this work. I mean, this is multifaceted, and a lot of it is orchestrated by me, crazy enough.
Why is that so crazy? What kind of experience brought you to this? What were you doing before you became the director or the executive director?
I was a mom, and I had worked, with some parental defense stuff. That's all really. And I mean, when the first person came to me probably 8 years ago, after my son was in horrific pain, literally to the point where the doctors had called us and said, he's going to die of pain. We just need to medicate him, and it will kill him, but the pain is going to kill him anyway. So let's just medicate him and he will die. And when the first person came to me and said, you should try cannabis, and it was a massage therapist. It was his massage therapist, somebody that I trusted. I literally walked out. I thought for sure he must be joking. After everything we tried, why would cannabis work? And I remember just looking at him and then just walking away. So that's why I say funny enough, is because 8 years ago, I thought I would have thought where I am today would have been absurd. And not that I was against cannabis, just that I didn't understand it as a medicine. And to a large degree, I find many patients understand medical cannabis better than I do. I mean, I still have to rely on people to explain to me strains that work for different things. And we're so glad now that we have chemists and industry here to take that. So yeah, no, if you had told me 10 years ago this is where I would be, I would have been really interested on that to see how that journey led me here.
Right, I'll bet. Wow. So let's ask this question. Outside of your family, who were your greatest allies in the fight to move Proposition 2 forward?
Everyone. I think the biggest mistake we could have ever made is to make this movement about a small group of people or one person, or put a face to the movement. I think the smartest thing we ever did is we let and supported all the little groups that popped up that said, we support medical cannabis, or, there's like even the Lyme's disease people supported us. I mean, there was just, the biggest allies was everybody, was all of the caregivers, all of the patients, all of the people who had, watched someone die of cancer. I remember going to get signatures, and just every single time I would put on that shirt, in the beginning I was like, oh no, I've been told that we're going to be targeted, that people are going to be angry at us. And I don't know that anybody ever said one mean thing to me. Maybe it's because I'm pushing a boy in a wheelchair, right? But so many times people trusted me with their deepest, darkest secret of, I have been allowing my son to use this for bipolar disorder. It's the only thing that works for him. In tears, I snuck this in for my mom while she died of stomach cancer. These stories that they heard, and then those people would sign the petition and then refuse to be silenced anymore because this movement was now here. And it was because it spread, because you could not point a finger in a crowd without being able to, to draw out people that had watched suffering at its core, and they knew that if this was an option, then they were willing to fight for it. And having it just everywhere, having the movement be about all patients, that was the biggest ally.
Right. Well, it sounds like an absolutely challenging fight, and that's one that's obviously still not nearly resolved.
Well, we have ink on paper, though, so at this point, nothing that we have can be taken away. I hope, right? And so we don't worry about. We have ink on paper. We have this huge basis and foundation to make something great, and we're doing that.
Right, and congratulations. I mean, everyone at SBC, Cole and myself, obviously, the patient and the green community here in Utah and elsewhere in the world are what we care about. Mm-hmm. So let's see here. So are you involved at all in the scheduling of the fight to get cannabis moved to Schedule 2 rather than Schedule 1 as a controlled substance? So that, in other words, to help the federal government acknowledge cannabis as medicine.
That it has, yeah. Once it's rescheduled, then it will. That's our only shot, really, of the government acknowledging that it has medicinal value, and that hasn't been done yet, which is crazy because they have a medicinal patent out on it, right? At this time, I'm not personally. I work with the Utah Cannabis Association, and we are. MPP helped us immensely during the initiative process. We work with them. They're more involved in that. I had actually hoped.
Who at the Utah Cannabis Association primarily, would you say?
Tom Paskett. Tom. I had hoped, I was really excited. Our Utah Department of Ag Commissioner, Kerry Gibson, was just he just ran for Congress. And he was such a huge ally in getting cannabis, the program, done right here in Utah. He was just running and actually lost. And so we're all just blown away. So actually it was funny because I had kind of been holding all my eggs in that basket and had conversations with him and said, okay, as soon as you are in Congress, because we had no reason to believe that he wasn't going to make it. As soon as he was there, we kind of had plans of him being this huge ally for Utah to get medical cannabis going, and he didn't win. And I don't know how that's going to work out now. So that was kind of that was what we were working on, and now we lost that connection. But we do have good connections with Mike Lee's office, so we'll have to start focusing our efforts there.
What can Utah's green scene do to support those efforts? Individually, to support or move those along, manpower, eyeballs, hands.
It's eyeballs and manpower. The thing is things change so quickly. It's so easy to miss things, right? Like or not see a bill that's coming, or not see something in the bill that's a problem. So eyes and hands and voices. It's making sure that people understand that this is for medicinal purposes. Is and staying involved federally, and so we have enough eyes on there that we're not letting anything pass us without noticing, I think, is the biggest thing.
Thank you, Desiree. Appreciate that. Here's another tack yet again. When it comes to activism practices, are there any that you admire or embrace? Any that you found more effective than others?
The last 10 years, I think maybe 10 years, probably 10 years. Things have changed a little bit where the emotional side of the story is actually being accepted more when law and policy is made. So being honest and telling your story, I think if nothing else, it was a good 50% of what we did. Just letting them see that the patients were real people and letting them see the suffering, letting them see the need. And then when things don't go our way, as hard as it is, walking away friends, because there was so many times, even Senator Vickers and I did not agree on, and still don't, on some things. He was against medical cannabis, but he was willing to listen. And now I would consider him a friend, but we don't agree. We don't agree. I mean, we're having an email right now where we're not agreeing on a couple things. And yet I know that at any time he will listen to me, and he knows that I will listen to him, and we will try to find a common ground. Neither one of us, I understand that he's not a bad person. He's not trying to keep anything from patients. His vantage point is just different. And
how would you characterize it, Desiree?
Well, he's a pharmacist, so and he likes everything to be dosed, and dosing cannabis is not something that's going to happen. I don't see cannabis as a danger to society. In a lot of ways, I think he still does, but that's not that. But he, a lot of the legislators, Senator Vickers included, I'm not trying to exclude him because I really, really admire him, and how far he's come to help patients. What was the thing that kind of pulled them out of their shells and allowed them to even look at medical cannabis was the patient stories. And they have this totally different vantage point. I mean, they're seeing law and they need to obey law, and they're seeing that, okay, well, we're going to allow patients to break federal law, and they have all these other concerns that we as patients don't have. We're very focused on, am I getting my family member out of pain? Am I able to sleep at night? Am I able to, do the things that I need to do to provide for my family? And those are our vantage points. Theirs are totally different. And I don't think that out of all the legislators and, that I've been talking to lately, I don't feel like any of them, even though some of them we vastly disagree, I don't feel like any of them are anti-helping patients. It's just their beliefs and their vantage point is just so different.
So when you say that you don't feel that cannabis could ever be, I suppose, dosed in the way that Vickers suggests?
Well, so what they want is, and when we have this conversation quite often, is they want to say an adult that weighs this much should take this much of this thing. And it's just not going to happen. I, for one, if I take 2.5 milligrams of THC, you won't see me for 2 days. And that's not common. Most people, 2.5, they can go to work, they can, function normally. So as long as everybody's endocannabinoid system is functioning differently, we're not going to be able to dose like they want, like they're used to. And so there's just that huge learning curve that we have to get past. There is what I'm saying. So yeah, they're looking at dosing in a totally different way. You and I and patients out there in Utah feel like they've got dosing handled.
And I was wondering if you could help our readership and viewers understand, in your mind, in your way of seeing things, the difference between legislation, decriminalization, and medical marijuana.
Right. So in the beginning, I thought we used to use the word decriminalization as, kind of the end all goal. But I think that that's not exactly what we're going for. I think what we want is legalization. I think there's a lot of people and correct me if I'm wrong, but the idea of decriminalization sounded like it was just going to be not a crime, right?
Mhm.
But really decriminalization, my understanding is that it still allows for government control over possession and sale and transfer, where legalization does not allow law enforcement to control possession, or transfer or sale, and you don't have to have a license to prove that you can do those things.
Mhm.
So I think me personally, I think what we're looking for is legalization of at least medical cannabis. I would like to see medical cannabis patients not have to prove to the government that they're a patient and prove that their medication is medication. So
Indeed. Yeah. Right. Moving right along. So again, the UDO question, Department of Health, you work closely with them. Tell us a little bit about Utah's Compassionate Use Board, how it operates, who its members are, and how they are selected.
So the Compassionate Use Board has 7 members, all different varying types of doctors. I think I got it, like 2 internal medicine, a neurologist, a pediatric doctor, palliative care, we've got a wide range of doctors.
No
And
pharmacists?
no pharmacists there.
Hmm.
So the pharmacists will all be at the pharmacy. And so that's how we kind of brought them in their knowledge. The Compassionate Use Board's function is for conditions that fall outside of the qualifying conditions list. So we're talking bipolar, anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, a lot of those that are very common that patients use them for, and yet we could not get them on that first bulk passage of conditions. And then in the process of the compromise, we added to the Compassionate Use Board's workload pediatric patients, which pediatric patients then was characterized as anyone under 21. So you have to have a doctor, take you through, apply with you to go through the Compassionate Use Board. And then these doctors on the Compassionate Use Board kind of just go over the data that is sent in and agree or disagree that your doctor can, or that you can use medical cannabis. So I've had, there's the Compassionate Use Board I'm glad they're there. I'm hoping that they're going to be our biggest ally in explaining what conditions we need to go ahead and expand to. So my worry is that, like I said, a lot of patients are using pain, because who doesn't have pain? And if that keeps happening, I need to be able to say, well, a lot of patients are using it for insomnia. A lot of patients are using it for anxiety and depression, which are so common. And I don't know if that's going to happen. So I need more data there. But the Compassionate Use Board, there's been a lot of fear around them, I think, in the general public, that they would be denying a lot of patients, that the Compassionate Use Board was going to be another hurdle. I worried about it myself. We get a pediatric patient ready, we send through the board. They've already been using cannabis, and now there's a board of 7 people plus 1 that can do the appeals, that can just take it all away. But the good news is, and if anybody has had another experience, message us at Utah Patients Coalition. But my understanding is that people are going through the Compassionate Use Board, they're getting approved, and it's not been another hurdle. It has been a tool so far to help us learn what patients are needing it, and hopefully it continues that way. Again, I believe there's a spot up on our website now where you can go and say, I was seen by the Compassionate Use Board. You can just say if you want to, the condition, and if you were approved or not. And that just gives us kind of some data to go by that says this is working or this isn't working for patients.
Important
So
data. People
yeah,
really need to do that.
I would love that feedback,
Mm-hmm.
if you made it through or didn't. So, and if you were applying for a condition outside of the conditions list, would love that data, and the sooner the better, because we're already working on the laws for 2021. So
Sure. Well, thank you again, Desiree. I appreciate that. Wow. Hmm. Hmm. Let's see. Do you believe that they're currently operating in a fair, just, and equitable way?
the compassionate use board, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Right now, yes. The only denials that I have found out about so far have been for lack of information. And then they just said, hey, we need more information. You're using cannabis. Can we get more information on why you feel like it treats your condition? And then when that information has been given, I don't know of any time when that patient hasn't gotten approved after the correct information has been given, or the amount of the amount of information they wanted has been given.
Okay.
So right now, I do feel like that they are being fair and just, and I don't feel like they're being another hurdle. So I feel like they're being an ally at this point, and I'm excited for that to continue and hopefully help us in, work in our favor as we try to ask for more conditions. And I do believe that they said their number one condition that comes through for them is pediatric pain. So if it's an adult, you or I wouldn't need to ask to go through the compassionate use board, but since it's a pediatric patient, they go through for pain, and that's their number one condition. I know of quite a few kids or caregivers who have requested to go, have their child put on for autism, and they have gotten approved. I also know of a couple MS patients, so of pediatric MS patients. So far, so good, I hope. But if that's not correct and anybody has any other data, message us, because I believe that the Utah Patients Coalition, as well as the Department of Health, wants this compassionate use board to work well in patients' favor.
Sure.
While still gathering data and understanding the conditions that are needed for medical cannabis.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, from all reports, you've been in this, and it's been quite a wear and tear, and we're all hugely appreciative to you and everyone that's helped you, Desiree Hennessy. Final question. Let's wrap it up with this, if we may. What would you tell the younger version of yourself 8 years ago? What would you tell her?
8 years ago, I think I would have said, get more sleep. No. That maybe that this was a good fight, and it was a fight that needed to happen. I think I've always known that, but I think I would have told myself that the amount of battles that seemed like they were going to sink us, that we would still come out ahead, and and just take time to turn around and see the beauty of what we've done as well, and not just always be stuck in the trenches. I think that's the part that gave us all ulcers. So
right. Any final words for Utah's green scene?
Just keep up the good fight. I think that we all need to remember that we're in this together. I believe strongly that cannabis use, is medical. I know that a lot of people say, recreational versus medical, and I don't think we need the big division there. I've talked to so many patients that call me and say, oh, I use medical cannabis, but I use it recreationally. And I say, well, how so? And they say, oh, I use it for anxiety. And I'm like, well, that's not really recreational. So I think.
So are you saying perhaps that recreational and medicinal usage could perhaps in some instances be one and the same?
I think in most instances they're the same. I know that I have a lot of people that have told me that they have replaced their Xanax with cannabis.
That can't be bad.
That can't be bad. It's not addictive, and they. So I do feel like I have yet to run into somebody who um, who uses it just 100% recreationally. Everybody that I've talked to has, even if it's just taking the edge off in the evening after a hard day's work, if that's keeping you away from something habit forming or addictive, I feel like then it's a medicinal use. And that's probably that. Maybe not everybody agrees with that statement, but I do agree. I do feel like that so many patients come to me and they're like, but I use recreationally, and I hear their story and I'm like, that's not recreational. So just realize that we're all in this together, and nobody's excluded from this fight to understand cannabis as medicine, and to reschedule it and make it work for patients and industry and lawmakers alike. So,
Well, Desiree Hennessy, Executive Director of Utah's Patient Coalition, thank you so much for spending time with Salt Lake City today. Really.
thank you.
Yeah.
I love to puff.